Y'all stop what you're doing. We have some breaking news coming out of the United Nations where the Secretary General Antonio Guterres has invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter. I'm going to let you watch this brief announcement and then I'm going to actually read the letter that was issued to the UN Security Council.
Given the scale of the loss of human life in Gaza and in Israel in such a short amount of time, the Secretary General has today delivered a letter to the President of the Security Council invoking Article 99 of the Charter of the United Nations. This is the first time that Antonio Guterres has done this since he became Secretary General in 2017. Article 99 states, and I quote, that the Secretary General may bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter in his opinion that may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. In the letter, which has been shared with you, the Secretary General urges the members of the Security Council to press to avert a humanitarian catastrophe, and he appeals for a humanitarian ceasefire to be declared.
In this letter addressed to the President of the Security Council, the man with quite literally 6 names, Guterres writes, "Dear Mr. President, I am writing under Article 99 of the United Nations Charter to bring the attention to the Security Council a matter which, in my opinion, may aggravate existing threats to the maintenance of international peace and security. More than 8 weeks of hostilities in Gaza and Israel have created appalling human suffering, physical destruction, and collective trauma across Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory. More than 1,200 people were brutally killed, including 33 children, and thousands were injured in the abhorrent acts of terror by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups on October 7, 2023, which I have repeatedly condemned. Some 250 people were abducted, including 34 children, more than 130 of whom are still captive. They must be immediately and unconditionally released. Accounts of sexual violence during the acts are appalling. Civilians throughout Gaza face grave danger. Since the start of Israel's military occupation, more than 15,000 people have reportedly been killed, over 40% of whom are children. Thousands of others have been injured. More than half of all homes have been destroyed. Some 80% of the population of 2.2 million has been forcibly displaced into increasingly smaller areas. More than 1.1 million people have sought refuge in UNRWA facilities across Gaza, creating overcrowded, undignified, and unhygienic conditions. Others have nowhere to shelter and find themselves on the street. Explosive remnants of war are rendering areas uninhabitable. There is no effective protection of civilians. The healthcare system in Gaza is collapsing. Hospitals have turned into battlegrounds. Only 14 hospitals out of 36 facilities are even partially functional. The 2 major hospitals in South Gaza are operating at 3 times their bed capacity and are running out of basic supplies and fuel. They are also sheltering thousands of displaced persons. Under these circumstances, more people will die untreated in the coming days and weeks. Nowhere is safe in Gaza. Amid constant bombardment by the Israeli Defense Force and without shelter or the essentials to survive, I expect public order to completely break down soon due to the desperate conditions, rendering even limited humanitarian assistance impossible. An even worse situation could unfold, including epidemic diseases and increased pressure for mass displacement into neighboring countries. In Resolutions 2712 from 2023, the Security Council calls for the scaling up of the provisions of such supplies to meet the humanitarian needs of the civilian population, especially children. The current conditions are making it impossible for meaningful humanitarian operations to be conducted. We are nevertheless preparing options for monitoring the implementation of the resolution, even if we recognize that in present circumstances that is untenable. While delivery of supplies through Rafah continues, quantities are insufficient and have dropped since the pause came to an end. We are simply unable to reach those in need inside Gaza. The capacity of the United Nations and its humanitarian partners has been decimated by supply shortages, lack of fuel, interrupted communications, and growing insecurity. Humanitarian personnel have joined the vast majority of Gazan civilians in evacuating to South Gaza ahead of advanced military operations. At least 130 UNRWA colleagues have been killed, many with their families. We are facing a severe risk of collapse of the humanitarian system. The situation is fast deteriorating into catastrophe with potentially irreversible implications for Palestinians as a whole and for peace and security in the region. Such an outcome must be avoided at all costs. The international community has a responsibility to use all its influence to prevent further escalations and end this crisis. I urge the members of Security Council to press to avert a humanitarian catastrophe. I reiterate my appeal for humanitarian ceasefire to be declared. This is urgent. The civilian population must be spared from greater harm. With a humanitarian ceasefire, the means of survival can be restored and humanitarian assistance can be delivered in a safe and timely manner across the Gaza Strip. Please accept, Mr. President, the assurances of my highest consideration. couple things I want to point out, right? Number one, the Security Council resolution that was passed in early November 2023 has been completely and totally contravened by Israel. Security Council resolutions are binding, they are legally binding and must be adhered to. And the fact that Israel ignored it is actually very important because there is processes that have to be followed under the United Nations Charter, meaning there are steps that have to happen first. So diplomatic resolutions prior to there being Security Council resolutions, and only in the event that diplomatic resolutions to kind of foster peace break down, that is when it does become the responsibility of the Security Council to now pass a binding resolution. In this case would be a ceasefire. The other really important thing I want to point out is that specifically he mentions under Article 99 of the UN Charter, bringing attention to the Security Council of a matter that may aggravate existing threats to the maintenance of international peace and security, along with the mention about the situation fast deteriorating into a catastrophe with potentially irreversible implications for Palestinians as a whole and for peace and security in the region, is very, very important to understand or read between the lines. Because what he is saying is that due to the inaction of the Security Council and due to the inaction of Israel to abide by the resolution that was already passed, as well as all of the ongoing and continuing deterioration inside of Gaza Strip, as well as inside of Israel in the West Bank and Jerusalem, with the violence continuing there, there is now a very, very, very real threat of there being issues and problems with maintaining international peace and security, meaning that time is running out before other countries and other groups intervene into the situation with force to end what is happening here. For those of you who don't understand the significance of this, so invoking Article 99 is widely considered to be the most powerful diplomatic tool at his disposal. It is just very, very rare for a Secretary General for this article to be invoked. It's the equivalent of pushing the panic button. So it gives him the authority to call for a Security Council meeting for any topic that he views as a threat to international peace and security. And he's doing this as a majority of council members have expressed support for a humanitarian ceasefire. However, the council has not invoked this resolution. Why? Well, because the U.S. has been very clear in its opposition. As a veto-wielding member, as recently as yesterday, the U.S. said it did not believe such resolution would help the situation. It instead called for continued negotiations, which is clearly working oh so well for the Palestinian civilians who are dying by the thousands each day. So what you're seeing here from UN officials and delegations is a full court press to try to get a ceasefire and some relief for the people of Gaza. Attempts are underway to break the logjam and help the Gaza Palestinians who are suffering immensely. And I do want to mention that when I Googled UN Secretary General invokes Article 99, not a single solitary Western mainstream news organization came up throughout the entire first page. Look at this. Not a single Western news outlet reporting on this. Teletrader is reporting on this. You would think with something as important and rare as the actual Secretary General of the UN invoking Article 99 of the UN Charter, you would think with news coming out, breaking news like that, you would have at least one major Western news organization covering that, but you do not. Do with that information what you will. But I would highly encourage people to share this information, especially if you live in a Western nation. Share this information and get it out there. Because without the voices in social media, people like me, people like you sharing this on our social media, this information will not get out there. Hell, based off of my experience on TikTok this far, I am absolutely expecting this video to be shadow banned. Sit at 0 views for at least 2 to 5 hours. Like I said, call to action, share this information, share what's going on, like my account so you can keep up with information. I'm posting stuff that comes out. Let's stay connected.